which loss was more troubling to you?
To me, it was the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, we've got guys like Tim Legler and others, rightfully so, I might add, really raving about what they've seen from the Dallas Mavericks, particularly with Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic clicking and what have you, along with Derek Lively and the acquisition of Gaffey and others. They've got some size on them, etc. Maybe they can make some noise in the West. And then they go out and they lose to a 76ers squad without Joel Embiid. And I know it's just one game, it's the regular season, but you know, it's moments like that that gives you cause to pause and make you look at a team like the Dallas Mavericks and saying, how legitimate are they? We know that Luka Doncic can explode. We know that Kyrie Irving can explode. But if you can find a way to make things interesting, which should be easy for most teams, you know what's going to happen with them? Who can they really beat? Tobias Harris looked all world yesterday. I'm looking at stuff like that, and it just gave me cause to pause from the Mavericks in terms of what I saw. I expected better.
All right, let's keep it in the wait. Sorry, Shannon, go ahead.
What's the problem,
I'm just trying to figure out, you in part killed me the other day when I say the Mavericks not going to do anything. Y'all beat me up. Y'all double team me. Y'all jumped me. Right. You and Big Park did that to me.
Well, but I'm sorry. Wasn't that before they lost to the Sixers? Wasn't that before they lost? I mean, it wasn't like I said it after. I'm just saying, without Embiid, it did give me, it may make me say to Dallas, what's up with y'all? What's up with that? I mean, was the game too early on a Sunday afternoon or something? I did expect more. What's wrong with that?
Okay.
You know? Go ahead, Tim. Get it in.
Listen, no, I'm going to get in on this. Listen, because you're right. I have been high on Dallas since the acquisitions at the trade deadline, since they found the chemistry between Kyrie and Luka, and Kyrie has looked energized and into it, and he looks like, he wants to be out there every night. Here's the problem. I'm just going to call them out. They don't play hard enough. They don't play hard enough. It's that simple. Wow. They do not lay it on the line defensively the way you have to be considered a legitimate contender. They have everything they need offensively every single night to go toe-to-toe with any team in this league because of the way that Luka controls the game as a scorer and passer and the supplemental offense they get out of Kyrie, and they got more than enough shooting. They got bouncy legs in the middle now. They've got everything you need offensively. They just gave up 127 points a game in the last 5 games. They don't compete on the defensive end of the floor to the extent that you need to, plain and simple. And if they don't, absolutely right, both of you. They could lose in the play-in. They could lose in the first-round series. If they can just leave a little more skin on the floor, they have an opportunity to truly challenge to get to the Western Conference Finals. If they do it. If they don't, they go home early, and it's just a bunch of gaudy numbers that guys are putting up every night that doesn't mean anything.
All right. Let's move on.
All right, let's talk about another team out there in the West that has a lot of questions, the Phoenix Suns. Stephen A., do you have reason to believe in Phoenix?
No. Why? First of all, I got to wonder about their health all the time. Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant have only played 23 games out of the 61. That's number one. I mean, I believe in them offensively. I know they're all world. They can score on anybody. So in that regard, I'll believe in them. But I got to tell you something right now. You know what, Shannon? You're watching games this week. Yeah. Maybe I watched the games this week and it just altered my thinking because I know you're going to get on me about that too. I know you're going to get on me about that too. But listen, I'm going to tell y'all why I wanted to bring up this subject, because it's something that's very interesting that I couldn't wait to bring it to both of y'all because I know how y'all are on subjects like this. We were arguing on NBA Countdown yesterday about Kevin Durant, who, by the way, since he arrived in Phoenix, is averaging 27 on 43% shooting from three-point range. And we know from a skill position how all-world Kevin Durant is, no question about it. But Bob Myers was talking about, how expecting too much, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, yo, did you know this? Kevin Durant ain't been out of the second round since he left Golden State. It's Kevin Durant we talking about. That is not good. That is not good. Now, obviously, if Kyrie hadn't gotten hurt against Milwaukee, I thought they would have won it all. But it happened. But he has not been out of the second round since he departed from Golden State. And by the way, there's a sweep in the first round at the hands of Boston, not this Boston team, from a couple of years ago when he was in Brooklyn. That happened with him and Kyrie on the floor. So we got to pay attention to that. And what I was saying, guys, yesterday was this. At some point in time when we talk about leadership, because leadership became a part of the discussion, and Shannon and you and I talked about this last week with Kevin Durant, what I said to Bob Myers was, when you go to the negotiating table, do you just sit up there and say, I'm going to put up numbers, but we're going to lose or whatever? Or do you say I'm a difference maker? Because he was talking about how people lead in different ways. And I said, it'd be one thing if you never won. But when you have won, because this is a two-time champion we're talking about, Kevin Durant, and a two-time NBA Finals MVP, that means you know what it takes. That means you've been surrounded in an environment where you saw what it would take in order to capture it. Isn't something a little extra, if necessary, required of you to do that you extend beyond yourself if the chip is that important? That was the kind of discussion that we were engaging in. And I was saying that's what the Suns appear to be lacking. And if somebody doesn't step up and step out of themselves to give you a little something extra than what we're accustomed to seeing from them, they're not going anywhere. That's where I was standing on it. I wanted to know how y'all felt about that because that's how I feel about the Suns. Go ahead, Shannon.
I ain't gonna beat you up because we had this conversation. Me, you, and Perk had the conversation last week, and y'all beat me over the head. Perk told me I need to watch more games, Legs, even though I watched just as many games as he watched because I got to come out here and talk basketball with Stephen A. Right. The concern that I've always had with the Phoenix Suns is their injury history. Kevin Durant has had knee injury problems. Booker has had hamstring problems. Bradley Beal has had injury history. So my concerns were, can they play enough games together?
Listen, I've got some serious concerns about him for a couple reasons. One, you guys have both touched on it. But listen, can you three guys ever play together? Can you just get on the floor on the same night so we can really evaluate what it's going to look like? They've hardly played together, so there's always that caveat when you talk about the Suns. Well, man, we need to see a larger sample size of what it looks like with those three players. I don't know if we're going to get it. I feel like as soon as one guy comes back from an injury, another guy gets tweaked or banged up and goes and sits. So we never really see him at full strength. So that's obviously one concern. That has to happen between now and the end of the season. Like, you need to give me a 15-game stretch where I see you guys every single night. They have a brutal schedule coming up over the next 2 weeks. You got Boston twice, you got Denver, you got Milwaukee, and you got the Cavaliers. That's 5 of your next 7 games. Now, if we can get all 3 guys on the court, maybe it gives you a better idea how they stack up with these teams. We haven't seen it. But here's the actual bigger concern for me. There's no real flow to what they do offensively because they don't have a true point guard. They don't have a table setter, an organizer offensively. What they have are 3 great offensive players who sort of operate independently of each other. We roll with this guy for a few possessions, then we roll with this guy for a few possessions, and then the other guy for a few possessions. But when you watch teams with great flow and rhythm to their offense, and he ran into one last night with Oklahoma City that has a clear identity every trip how they are going to play. It's going to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the middle of the floor, either iso wing or ball screen, and then they space out off of that, and they move it with great rhythm. So you look at every team in the league, really, there's an identity trip after trip. I don't necessarily see that with the Suns. I see a series of tough shots and a lot of tough shots that are made, and it reminds you of the greatness of these players. That is not going to be good enough against the competition level in the Western Conference. Look, they've got, 23, 24 games left, whatever it is, to change our minds. But right now, it sounds like we're all in agreement. We have high skepticism when it comes to the Phoenix Suns actually making a run through the Western Conference.
So again, I asked the question somewhat rhetorically, but in all seriousness, I would like a quick answer on this. What do we make of a team when you have a superstar, because he is a superstar, that is Kevin Durant, and it's like, I am who I am. This is what I do. Work around it. What do you do when it's something more that's required? When we think about the great ones that we've talked about, it's easy to point to MJ. It's easy to point to Kobe. What about Isaiah Thomas? What about the kind of leader he was? What about the way he was able to hold Bad Boy Pistons accountable? There was a certain way you were going to do things because we after the chip. Now, you're going to be a part of this or you're going to be up out of here. What about that? I mean, we don't see that from a guy like Kevin Durant. Is that okay? Or is it a need that needs to be addressed in terms of digging something out of yourself that may not be something that you normally do in order to get to where you need to go?
Stephen A., I look at Kevin Durant's situation like a relationship. When you're getting into a relationship with a woman, you accept them as they are, not how you wish them to be. Accept Kevin Durant as he is, not how you wish him to be.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would echo it for saying this, Stephen A. At this stage of Kevin Durant's career, you're not going to see a change in that regard. Kevin Durant's always carried himself like, I'm going to show up and play and do what I do, and that's going to be good enough because of this exceptional talent. You know, and maybe in this case it would require more. I just don't see, based on his personality and his track record and how he carries himself and the way he leads, which is by showing up and being productive every night at a really high level, that's how he does it. It might not be enough in this situation, but I don't think you can expect change at this point.
Because he told you, Stephen A., he says, the way I show up and work, the way I practice, the way I treat my teammates, that's leadership for him. That's the way he views it. Not saying anything about holding guys accountable, like, I need you to do this. That's not what he is. So I'm accepting him how he is, not how I wish him to be.
Got it.
All right. Very good relationship advice, by the way, there, Shannon, for both men and women. I expect nothing less.
You better come to your boy. If you want that relationship advice, come to your boy. Nightcap, I give it to you.
We know you got a few things on me. That ain't one of them. Nah. I ain't
We'll
giving
get
you
together,
that.
have some of that cognac. And we'll get together, have some of that cognac.
That's right. Send me some of that cognac. That'll work. That'll work.
Let's all get together, have some VSOP, and let's enjoy the night.
Hey, by Laportier.
NBA,